A very good morning to one and all. I, Nelvita Norona, deem it my privilege to welcome you all to the session and introduce our esteemed resource person for the session. We are highly honored to have Professor Dr. Ramakrishna as the resource person for this session. Professor Dr. Ramakrishna completed his BSc in 1974 and then pursued graduation in law and masters in law in international law and jurisprudence from Mysore University. Sir is also having a master degree in political science and public administration from Karnataka University and was awarded PhD for legal protection of well-known trademarks from Mysore University in the year 2000. Sir is a lecturer, reader, and a professor and served as the principal of Vidya Vardhaka Law College, Mysore. He was also a visiting faculty at the Department of Postgraduate Studies in Research in Law, Mysore University, and Karnataka Police Academy from 1990 to 2000. Sir has been a resource person and keynote speaker and also presented various research papers at national and international conferences and seminars wherein he has enlightened the participants with his enriched knowledge on IPR and its implications and protections. Sir has authored the modules for PGD IPR course in 2003. He has presented a paper on IPR protection for pharmaceutical products in India at the Conference on Global Pharmaceuticals, Biotechnology and Health in 21st Century at Mumbai. He has participated in WIPO conference on copyright issues in the digital environment organized by MHRD. Sir has also a great interest in research activities. He has undertaken a work and submitted a report for Justice Malamuth Committee on Reforms to Criminal Justice System, wherein an extensive research on classification of crimes, criminal justice system in selected jurisdictions has been undertaken. He has worked with Government of Karnataka, Labour Department of policy relating to child labour. He has worked with Ministry of HRD, Traditional Knowledge Protection, wherein he has been working on drafting of legislation for the protection of traditional knowledge and traditional cultural expansion. Sir has worked as a member of Committee on Intellectual Property Rights constituted by University Grants Commission, New Delhi, and participated in preparation of guidelines for IPR policies in the university. Currently, Sir holds an Intellectual Property Rights Chair of the Ministry of Human Resources and Development at National Law School of India University and is a coordinator of the Center of Intellectual Property Rights Research and Advocacy at NLSIU and the team leader of FSTP project. He is a member of different expert committees constituted by Indian Intellectual Property Office, National Biodiversity Authority, Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Authority, Copyright Office, and the member of Institutional Ethics Committee. Currently, he is the chairman of Postgraduate Council, special invitee of the Executive Council, and the member of General Council of NLSIU. His areas of specialization include intellectual property right law, international law, criminal law, and law of evidence. I'm sure all the participants are eagerly waiting to hear from you, sir. May I kindly request you to take over.
That introduction. Welcome to all the participants. Let me at the outset thank Professor Taranath, the principal of SDM College. I'm happy that SDM Law College and Engineering College, they are jointly organizing this particular program. The moment I think of SDM, I recall those days when we used to be in SDM every half year for the valuation and other things, and roaming around the Bangalore city, right? It takes me back to those days when most of my friends used to come and assemble in the city of Bangalore. Recently also we were there before the COVID pandemic broke out. We were there in Mangalore conducting programs for the MSME ministry. Well, friends, the intellectual property rights has many categories, and patent is one amongst them. These are intangible rights. These are intangible property rights. And this is considered to be intellectual property because it is a product of human intellect. This has been recognized at the international level, and there are many international conventions that have been regulating different categories of intellectual property rights. There are around 30 to 31 international treaties regulating this, of which 25 treaties are administered by World Intellectual Property Organization, and one very important treaty called as TRIPS, Trade-Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, administered by WTO, ITPGR administered by FAO, Universal Copyright Convention administered by UNESCO, International Protection for Plant Varieties administered by EPOV, so on and so forth. It's just to say that IPR has gained its importance at the global level in the global transactions. In the knowledge economy, you find intellectual or intangible assets are more than the tangible assets in a particular company. There are instances where a company closes down, but even by closing down, offers for sale its patent, and it earns a huge sum of money as a lump sum payment for the sale of the patents. Which means to say, intellectual property right or intangible assets are very much necessary for an organization to progress. Why these particular intellectual property rights? What is the rationale behind that? Is intellectual property rights conferring monopoly and ease at the cost of the public interest? Let me just dispel this particular myth. Intellectual property rights has attained a fine balance between the individual interest of the creator and the innovator and the public interest. In fact, this grew with the objective of balancing it. If I can just mention here, the constitutional provision of USA, Article 1(8), it says, the Congress shall ensure exclusive rights to the inventors for his inventions for limited times. Exclusive right for the writers for their writings for limited times. But conferring that particular right is not the end in itself. Conferring that particular right is only a means to a larger end. What is the larger end? The same article says, for the promotion of the progress of science and useful arts, ensure exclusive rights. So your ultimate objective is to promote the progress of science and useful arts. It means that an individual would have, through his labor for several years, contributed to the existing pool of knowledge. And there must be some quid pro from the state, something in return as a consideration from the state. That is where the state intervenes and says, I am going to ensure that you are going to enjoy this particular right for limited time. And we are going to provide you all the mechanisms for enjoyment. And we want you to disclose that. If you disclose that, you get this particular right. So he discloses that and gets the right. But who is benefited in that particular process? The entire community benefits, especially the scientific community benefits here. When the person discloses the invention that he has made, because the entire community can make that as the starting point for their further investigation. So state gains and the individual also gains in this particular process. Well, friends, with that background, what is a patent? Patent is an exclusive right granted by the state to whom? To the first and true inventor. For what? For the invention. When? Upon clear and complete disclosure of that particular invention. How long? For limited times, that is 20 years. So it's an exclusive right granted by the state for the invention to the first and true inventor upon clear and complete disclosure of the invention, and that is for a limited time. That is patents. And when patents are granted, do you think these patents are going to promote, or what you say is going to ensure the innovations happening in the society or not, or in the community or not? My proposition is, yes, it does for innovation in the community or in the state. And therefore, today I thought, after a lecture on the practical aspects of prior art search, I would look at how the courts would examine certain patenting processes. How would the court decide whether a particular claim is a patent eligible subject matter or not? And for that, I have picked up here the computer related inventions, and especially in the context of AI and blockchain technology. And for that, let me just briefly take you through the statistics, the world statistics that you can just examine here. You find these are all the different fields that you find: digital communication, computer technology, electrical machinery, transport, medical technology, mechanical, and audiovisual. As far as PCT, top tech fields are concerned, which are the countries which specialize in which technologies? You can find here that in digital communication, China tops. In computer technology, US tops. In electrical machinery, apparatus and energy, Japan tops. Transport, Germany, right? And then mechanical elements, audiovisual, this China comes at the third stage. So among these five, this is how it's being distributed. This is an indication that technology is moving and the patents are promoting innovations in this particular field, because it ensures an exclusive right. It ensures a protection for all the innovations that are being done. If you just move further, as regards PCT applications in the top 10 countries are concerned, you find China again at the top with all increases, 10.6% increase from 2018 to 19, and US 2.8% increase, Japan 5.9% increase. That's how it happens. So this is the top 10 biggest users of the PCT system, and India doesn't figure there. If you just look at the number of patent applications being filed, right? 1.5 million, 15 lakh applications you find in China. US you find 5.97, and India, it has risen from 40 to 50,000, a rise of 7.5% in the patent applications. If you just look at the trend, I'm just identifying all these statistics for the simple reason that you find a growing trend in filing and then grant of patents because of a lot of innovations that are happening. If you look at the trends in the last 5 years in India, from 42,951 to 47,000, and last year you found 50,000 applications filed in India as far as patent is concerned. Then number of applications filed, examined, granted, and disposed of. This is what the Patent Office statistics indicates. The number of applications filed from 42,000, it has come up to 47,000, now 50,000. This is what they have examined, this is what they have granted. So grant of patent has being increased now because of all the prior art searches being done by the applicants, and who would ensure that only patent eligible subject matters are going to be filed in the patent offices as far as possible. Then these are the comparative trends which I'll not be going. But when you come to the startups application being filed, natural application, natural persons application, and the small entity and others, you find these particular statistics. Right? 16, 17, natural persons 5,918, foreign is less. But other than that, you find foreign applications are around 30,000, whereas Indian applications are around 6,700. Which means, on the whole, amongst the applications filed in India, foreign applications are the majority. 70% and more than that would be foreign applications, and others would be Indian applications. That is where awareness in India, sensitization in India, capturing the development in India is required. And if you just look at the 5 Indian applicants for patents in the field of information technology, Wipro, TCS comes next, HYPE, Ganapathy Gopalakrishnan individual, HCL and SRM University comes next. As far as scientific and research and development organizations are concerned, CSIR is still firing, and DRDO also goes ahead and files. If it is foreign resident applicants, Qualcomm tops, right, with 960 applications last year. And then, of course, Honda, Huawei, ABB, Daimler, they're all in the applicants list. Well, friends, let me just look at the field of technology under which patents are being filed. You would find in the field of computer and electronics, right, there is a steep rise in the number of applications being filed. So that technology is also being of greater importance. Electrical, you find again an increase in all the fields. You find the increase, except of course food area. General engineering also you find a steep rise, and all of the fields you find the rise in the number of applications being filed. Applications granted patents we need not look at. Well, friends, with this, let's just start my debate on what is this, the implications of artificial intelligence on the intellectual property system as such. As you can see here, the IP and the traditional notions of IP here, right, are being questioned now with the advent of AL and ML, similarly mimicking biological cognition. The reason is they themselves are able to create the works, and they are able to invent the new products or the processes. When these are capable of doing that, then can you still ignore their contribution and identify only natural persons as the authors or as the inventors? These are the questions that have come up. We're going to address that as we progress. And you know, there is no area which AI has left. Every area, starting from medical, arts, automotive, energy, gas, manufacturing industries, etc. This particular part of the definition may not be required for engineering students or faculty. Some discipline of computer science. I'm emphasizing on that particular word, a discipline of computer science, which is aimed at developing systems that can carry out tasks considered to require human intelligence. Machines that can become better at a task typically performed by humans with limited or non-limited or non-human intervention. And this is an AI process. That's machine learning is an AI process. So at the core of both, you find the discipline of computer science involved. And as far as medical technology is concerned, you would find it's being applied in different aspects, like the breast. Well, as far as for finger, no, it's all form of a decentralized ledger. They're all data nodes, right? And what you find here is the software is coded that way. So again, you come across the software, and hence We are going to look at the broader computer-related inventions principles. That is what is to be applied. As far as this technology is concerned, we find a court in Hangzhou, right? They have been using this technology for the purpose of recording and maintaining the data relating to authorship, content, etc., relating to copyright, and work was created and whether that work is infringed or not. So the entire copyright-related works database is maintained by use of blockchain technology, which means this is used as a means for ensuring the appropriate record for the copyrighted material. Then you find even this particular blockchain evidence has been utilized for proving copyright infringement, right? There was an allegation by TikTok against other mobile applications, and the court goes ahead and then collects evidence from the blockchain technology. Filed in large number, to which I'm going to go as I progress. MasterCard has filed applications for patents, Bank of America has filed, Fidelity has filed, and so on and so forth. Then even the NASDAQ stock exchange here has been using its own patented blockchain cloud. It's a patented one. They've been using this for investors for trade securities. Similarly, the MIT open source copyright license also covers the blockchain technology. There was a survey done recently, friends, and which indicates here that there are a number of applications being filed by different organizations for patenting of the blockchain-related technology. Although you know the background, Satoshi, who is the inventor of blockchain, he has obtained patent for Bitcoin. However, when he developed this particular blockchain technology at Bitcoin, he used 3 different technologies of linked time stamping, Merkle tree, Byzantine fault tolerance. Merkle was patented right by Merkle when he was in Stanford. And at the time Satoshi came out with this blockchain, this was already out of the patent system. And therefore, he has built up by using Merkle as a building block and has developed it. And if you look at the investment trend, looking at the first application basis, you would find in 2010, there were 16 patent families relating to blockchain-related technology. There were around 6,067 by 2018 and 5,551 by 2019 patent families relating to the blockchain technology. Who are the key players in the market now? Tencent Technology from Shenzhen, right, is the top player in this particular field. Alibaba is the second one, and IBM is the third one in this particular field. With Tencent Technology, around 731 patent applications pending and 10 being granted. Alibaba 489 applications. IBM 324 pending with 100 being granted. What is that particular concept which you examined when you were doing the prior art search? What is that particular concept around which the patent applications are being filed? You know, there is a process of verification. So all of you are using smart cards, you know the process of verification. That is one particular concept on which applications could be filed. Smart contract, the contract that takes place between you and the bank, you and the other organizations, you and other users, right? The smart contract part is one. Then authentication processes. Authentication process could also be a concept based on which you can file the patent application. Then the payment processes, how it's paid and how the entire deduction, debit, credit, etc. happens here. Then the consensus, right, that's arrived at between the two platforms. The digital currency that's been used, right, and part of it is on blockchain node, and part of it is on cryptocurrency. These are all the concepts around which patent applications are being filed in the context of blockchain technology. Let me just refer to the patent family by assignees. Patent family relating to blockchain technology. Tencent Technology has around 745. Alibaba comes next, 583. IBM has 10. Bank of America also has 515. Intel has filed 94. This is briefly, friends, about how even the blockchain technology related patent applications are being filed, and in many cases they have been granted. Well, this raises a question as to whether the computer related inventions, whether it's in the form of an AI, whether it's in the form of a blockchain, or whether it's in the form of any other medical technology which has a computer related invention, is patent eligible or not, is the fundamental question that comes up here. And that is what precisely I'm trying to address. I will take this particular participant through several case laws. Through case laws, I'm going to highlight as to how the courts in US have examined the claims made by the applicants and whether those claims fall into computer programs and therefore get excluded, or there's something more than mere computer programs and could be categorized as process in the form of computer related inventions and therefore would be eligible for patents or not. This is the attempt that I'm going to make now. The first question before the court, the earliest one in 1972, was whether this claim 8 and claim 13 are valid claims for which patent can be granted or not. What is the claim that they have made here? It is a method of converting signals from binary coded decimal form into binary form, and the steps have been indicated. So the claim here is for conversion of signals from binary coded decimal into binaries. And claim 13, right, further elaborates it as saying a data processing method for converting binary coded decimal number representations into binary number representations comprising the steps of. This is in question now. And the invention that they are claiming here is a method, it's a method claim, implemented on a general purpose digital computer. Please note that. General purpose digital computer of any type for converting a number expressed in binary code decimal format into pure binary numbers. This is the invention for which they are claiming. And I need not explain as to what is the BCD conversions into binary numbers. Well, how did the patent examiner look at it? Patent examiner says, come on, what is this particular conversion that can be done without a computer? Yeah, if it is a mental process and a mathematical steps, then it cannot qualify as a process for getting patent under Section 101 of the Patent Act, because they are merely mental processes and they are abstract in nature. However, the appellate court, Court of Customs and Patent Appeals, it reverses and then says, well, this process is not constituting a mental step because this is used in connection with a digital electronic computer, and therefore it's a patent eligible subject matter. When it goes before the Supreme Court of US, Supreme Court addresses this issue in this manner. It says, an idea by itself is not patentable. An abstract idea is not patentable. What is found here? The process claim of conversion of BCD into pure binary, it appears to be so abstract. It's appearing to be so abstract and even sleepy because it covers both known and unknown uses of BCD to pure binary conversion. So very vast, very wide, and a mental process. And in such circumstances, what is that you want to get patent for? Right? And then the court further says, well, there is an argument that a process patent must either be tied to a particular machine or an apparatus, or must operate to change articles or materials to different state or thing. However, the court said that is not necessary all the time. Even without that, a process could get the patent. Should it be tied to a machine? It should be, but it need not be tied to a machine all the time. It can bring about transformation. You have to examine as you progress in the other cases. And this is what the court concluded. If programs for digital computers are to be patentable, problems are raised which only congressional committees can manage and questions his policy matter to which court is not competent to speak. If you're thinking of programs getting patent protection, then it is for the Congress to do that, and we are not going to do. So they rejected that particular patent application. Then, the next subsequent one is 1978 Parker versus Fluke case, equally an interesting one. Friends, please follow the claim that I'll be referring to so that the reasoning given by the court would be clear to you. The claim is like this. A method, it's for a method, it's not a product. Method for a cost in crystallized chemical process of hydra, which means in many variables, temperature, pressure, flow rate, etc. Alarm limits are fixed to know whether the conditions during the process are either dangerous or operating far below the efficiency. So as a conversion process does not operate in a steady state, alarm limits need to be updated looking into operating conditions. So you're setting the alarm limit. At what time the conversion has happened and the conversion process is over, and the moment it's over, then there will be an alarm. Right? This is being set by a particular program. And the program is based on a mathematical method. So the claim is this particular claim eligible for patent or not? And the patent examiner here says, well, we don't entertain this, that only respect in which this process differed from the prior art was its use of an equation in the second step of the process, in which to grant a patent on Fluke's claim would be to grant a patent on the equation itself. What is that is being claimed here? Patent examiner says, if you just look at what is already known, everything in this particular claim is already known. What is that they have introduced new? They have introduced new something which is in the form of an equation, right? The process, the equation that I've included, and is that equation, if you just take out that particular equation, everything is known. And what is the new thing that's being introduced? The equation. Is equation here a patentable subject matter? Answer is no. And therefore they said, we cannot grant patent for this. The next stage of appeal, they said, Fluke's claim does not seek to prevent all uses of his mathematical formula, right? It's not preempting all use of mathematical formula, and therefore they should not be rejected. I'll explain that as I move forward. However, the Supreme Court makes this particular statement. Unpatentable under section 101, it's not patentable here, right? The reason is it has a mathematical algorithm as one component. Once that algorithm is assumed to be within the prior art, considered as a whole contains no patentable invention. If the algorithm is already in the prior art, then what is that you're claiming patent for? There is nothing, right? And therefore, the point of novelty is in the application of an excluded subject matter. Otherwise, everything is in the prior art. Therefore, the court rejected this particular application. Then they said, you'll have to draw a line. The Supreme Court says, you'll have to draw a line between patentable process and an unpatentable principle. But to draw that particular thing is very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. Because both are conceptions of the mind, and which can be seen only by their effects being executed or performed. Right? In this process, as I told you, the point of novelty lies in introduction of the new product, and therefore you should not be eligible for patent protection. Well, friends, this is the most important case that I would want you to follow up. Diamond versus Dyer. Follow the invention claimed here. Invention is for a process for molding raw, uncured synthetic rubber into cured precision products. The uncured synthetic rubber would be put in a mold, and there will be heat and pressure applied to that. And then the mold is opened when the rubber has been cured for a proper length of time. So you'll have to determine the curing time. How would it be determined? It's based on the temperature inside the mold and the relationship between temperature and the pressure, right, is to be found out. And there is something called as Arrhenius equation. Arrhenius equation is being applied here. Based on Arrhenius equation, an algorithm is developed, and based on that, the computer program is developed, and the program is applied here in the process. And therefore, in the entire process, the lid would open when the cure time is attained. So automatically, it will get opened. The entire process, including the computer program claim, would be eligible for patent protection or not was the question before the court. And the patent examiner here, going back to the Goldstack versus Benson case, he said it doesn't fall under the patent eligible subject matter and therefore should not be granted patent. Then Hello?
Yes, sir.
Audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Yeah,
I think you
the
lost
power,
your connectivity, I think, sir. Yes.
no, the power went off here.
Okay,
Right, I
okay,
had to use some other means for logging in again.
okay, sir.
I'll just continue with right wherever I had left.
Sure, sir.
Is it visible? My
Yes, sir, yes, sir, it's visible.
Wonderful. My apologies, friends. You know, there are advantages of technology, and there are equally disadvantages of technology if you rely upon that too much, right? And therefore, you'll have to have alternative sources also. I was able to find out the alternative, and that took a little time. Yeah, the Diamond versus Dyer case that I was referring to here, you have the entire process of curing rubber for which you have made a claim, and you have made a claim for that bit of the process where computer program is involved, which is going to identify the curing time and then give direction for opening of the lid. Now, whether that claim, which is for a computer program, as a process, would that particular part of the process be unpatentable because it is based on a mathematical equation? See, the whole question that comes up here is whether the claim that was made by the applicant, was it a claim on the Arrhenius equation itself? If the answer is yes, it was on Arrhenius equation itself, then the claim would fail because the claim, if granted on Arrhenius equation, is going to preempt other uses of Arrhenius equation by any other person for any other product. And therefore, the claim on Arrhenius equation would not have been granted patent. But here, the claim was not on Arrhenius equation, but on application of Arrhenius equation in the rubber curing process. So to the extent which it is applied here, the court says there is what is called as transformation brought about in the rubber curing process. The process is known, but there's a transformation that happens by virtue of the computer-related claim that's being made here. So the court applied here the transformation test and absence of preemption test. If you just go back to the first case, you find mental process test was applied and they said it shall not be patent eligible. If you go to the second case, you found that the court said the point of novelty. What is that is novel here? It's only the excluded subject matter, and therefore it should not get the patent protection. Whereas here the court says, well, there is application of what is called as the transformation test, and therefore they should be entitled for patent protection. Well, just examine this particular patent application and the patent claim. What is the claim that is being made here? They say, let me just look at the problem and then I'll come to the claim. The problem here was with the digital oscilloscope, right? There are only finite number of pixels which are arranged in a rectangular grid, and that even though lie close to each other, but still a space is left between them. What happens? On rapid rising and falling of the waveform, the eye does not infer smoothness and instead sees the waveform as a discontinuous or jagged form. What is this called? The noticeability and appearance of these discontinuous and jagged effects are called as aliasing. All those who are from computer science background, it's a common terminology for you, right? Its effects are called as aliasing effects. If there are aliasing effects, you will have to write a program that is going to be solving this particular problem called as anti-aliasing effects, right? Now, the solution was found in this particular manner. There's anti-aliasing system, and in the anti-aliasing system, pixel illumination was modulated, right? Where the intensity of each pixel illumination decreases as its distance from the real waveform increases. Hope you're following that, right? Each pixel's illumination decreases as its distance from the real waveform increases. So employing this anti-aliasing technique, it eliminated any apparent discontinuity, jaggedness, or oscillation in the waveform. Thereby, you are getting the the smooth continuous waveform on the oscilloscope. So because of aliasing problem, there was jagged discontinuous waveform on the oscilloscope. By programming in the form of an anti-aliasing system, you have eliminated that particular discontinuity and you find a smooth continuous waveform being obtained on the oscilloscope. So you'll be able to identify as to what is the result. Then friends, the claim that was made now for this invention ran like this. It says a rasterizer. When I say rasterizer, it means a converter. A rasterizer for converting vector list data representing sample magnitudes of an input waveform into anti-aliased pixel illumination intensity data to be displayed on display means comprising of they provided the steps. So just go back here. It's a rasterizer. What does the rasterizer do? Converts vector list data, which represents sample magnitudes of an input waveform, into anti-aliased pixel illumination intensity data. So anti-aliased pixel illumination data is the conversion that happens here. And when that conversion happens, you get the smooth waveform. Is that a patent eligible subject matter or not? And you find the quote that claim 15 is defining a combination of elements constituting number one, a machine for producing anti-aliased waveform. The quote further says, merely because claim 15 reads a general purpose computer programmed to carry out the claimed invention, well, that should not be understood here that the claim is unpatentable as directed to non-statutory subject matter. Read that particular part that I have highlighted here. Such a programming creates a new machine because a general purpose computer in effect becomes a special purpose computer once it is programmed to perform particular functions pursuant to instructions from the program software. So this has become a special purpose computer in this particular context. And the most important part of the whole principle here is the last part, where it says, rather a specific machine, this is a specific machine to produce useful, concrete, and tangible result. Well, friends, we have moved from mental processes, point of novelty, then transformation. Now we are looking at something called as a process. When you are using a computer program, there is a process that happens here, and your claim is for that process. And the process here is such that it produces useful, concrete, and tangible results. What else could be useful, tangible, and concrete results than the smooth waveform that you find on the oscilloscope? It is tangible result that you obtained, and that particular process that creates this should be entitled for patent protection, is what the court said in Re Elephant. Perhaps this is one significant development that has happened here. Then, friends, let me just look at the next case, interesting case, State Street Bank versus Signature Financial Group. It was for what is very interestingly called as hub and spoke financial services configuration. It's a data processing system for hub and spoke financial service configuration. See the claim here. 056 patent is directed to a data processing system. What for? For implementing an investment structure. It's an investment structure where 2 or 3 mutual funds mingle their assets in so-called spokes. So assets of 2 mutual funds are combined in these spokes to combine their assets in a common second generation investment portfolio, the so-called hub. So again, they combine this particular asset. So the whole process here is combination of the mutual fund assets, and ultimately you're going to allocate the subscribers the extent of fund that each one would be getting here. See here, the purpose of such an arrangement is to pool common expenses. The investment configuration provides the administrator a mutual fund with advantages combining a combination of economies of scale in administering investments coupled with tax advantages of a partnership. So now, whether this could become patent eligible or not. When it goes before the Court of Appeals for Federal Circuit, the court says that if you are claiming patent for a mathematical algorithm in the form of a process, not just the algorithm, right? That becomes an abstract idea. As a process, then it must be reduced to practical application. How are you going to reduce it to practical application? When you reduce it to practical application, it must produce useful, concrete, and tangible result, right? What is that you're getting here? Transformation of data representing discrete dollar amounts by a machine through a series of mathematical calculations into final share price, right? Through all this calculation, it gives you the share price that constitutes a practical application of a mathematical algorithm, formula, or calculation, because it produces ultimately what the previous quote said: useful, concrete, and tangible results, right? And therefore, this is patent eligible. Second question, friends, that came before this particular quote was whether a business method is a patent eligible subject matter or not. And very serious debate, discussion happened in this particular case. And the court categorically said that there is no exclusion of business method under the US patent law. Friends, under US patent law, the judges have created 3 exceptions as far as patent eligible subject matter concerned. One is an abstract idea. Any abstract idea would not get patent protection. Second one, law of nature would not get patent protection. Third one, any physical phenomena would not get the patent protection. These are the 3 exclusions created by the judiciary. Otherwise, as the Supreme Court in Diamond vs. Chakravarti said, anything under the sun is patent eligible under US under Section 101 of the US Patent Act. So this case is important for us because the court categorically said that business methods are patent eligible subject matter. Well, friends, a very significant development happened in this particular case of Bilski versus Kapos, where the claim was in relation to risk mitigation or a method of hedging losses in energy. This was the claim. I'll not be going into specific aspects of the claim at this particular stage. But the 3 claims that were in question, Supreme Court says, well, you can decide whether the claim to subject matter is patent eligible or not by application of MOT test. MOT is, it should be tied to a machine. So if it is tied to a machine, fine, it might get the patent protection. And therefore, abstract program will not get patent protection. Or it should bring about transformation in the existing prior art. If it brings about transformation, it would be patent eligible, right? So this MOT test can be applied to determine whether it's patentable or not. But what the Supreme Court said here is that MOT test is not the only test for deciding whether an invention is a patent eligible process or not. And it says this MOT test definitely is a useful and important clue, an investigative tool for determining whether some claimed invention or processes under Section 101. So MOT test is a useful and important clue, but is not the sole test. But it could be a test as well, is what the Supreme Court says in this particular case. Then the Bilski patent applications which were claimed, the court ruled and said they all fall outside Section 101 and therefore they are not patent eligible, because all the claims that have been made are claims to abstract idea, and any claim to abstract idea would not get the patent protection. The court cited all the 3 cases that I referred to, Benson, Fluke, and Dyer. So the claim 1, concept of hedging risk outside the protection. Next, concept reduced to a practical formula, that's claim 4, not patent eligible. And the third one, concept limited to particular field or to token post-solution components, also not patent eligible. Well, friends, now comes the most important and the latest one, right? Allies Corporation versus CLS Bank International. In this case, the claim was for computerized scheme for mitigating settlement risk of a party to financial exchange defaulting in its obligation. It is settlement risk, mitigating the settlement risk. So there will be a third party escrow, right? where they are going to settle that particular risk. So the claims are two claims here. Claim 33 is one. Claim 33 is referring to a method of exchanging obligations as between parties, each party holding a credit record and debit record, an exchange institution. The credit records and the debit records for exchange of predetermined obligations. The method comprising the following steps. So these are the steps that they identify. It's a method for exchange of obligations as between the parties. Then the next claim was claim 1 of the 720 patent, which said a data processing system to enable the exchange of an obligation between the parties, and the system contains this: a storage, a data storage unit, etc., etc. Right? A computer occupied to set data storage. These were the two claims. And when it goes before the Supreme Court says you will have to decide in such circumstances by application of two-step test. Right? This is the latest case where the court says step 1, identify and find out whether the claims which are controversial here are the claims directed to a patent ineligible concept. What is patent ineligible concept? An abstract idea, law of nature, or physical phenomena, right? Are the claims directed towards that particular concept? Yes. The answer is yes. Then step B, you go to the next step and then say, are these claims reciting elements sufficient to transform the abstract idea into patent eligible subject matter? Yes, broadly it is an abstract idea, but are there any elements that you find within this particular claim which is going to transform the abstract idea into patent eligible subject matter? What is that? That which is sufficient to ensure the patent amounts to more than a patent on the idea itself. It's not an idea itself, something more than that. You can just go back to Diamond versus Dyer. You can just go back to Ray Alapet. You can go back to State Street Bank. Then, is it supplying a new and useful application of the idea? Or is there an improvement in a technology or technical field? If you find any of these elements or similar elements, then the claim that has been made here is sufficient to transform the abstract idea into patent eligible subject matter and therefore would be eligible for patent. So whenever such a claim is made for computer related inventions or for a business method, right, or such excluded subject matter, then adopt these two tests and find out if there are any elements sufficient to transform the abstract idea. Then that becomes patent eligible. So step 1 and step 2 are here. I'm not going to go to step 1 and step 2, hoping that you have followed that. To put it in very simple terms, these are the two steps that Allies Corporation said. 1, determining whether the claims at issue are directed to a patent eligible concept. Second, if the claims are directed to ineligible concept, then the elements of all claims must be examined to determine whether they contain an inventive concept. And that inventive concept should be sufficient to transform the claimed abstract idea into patent eligible application. This is Allies Corporation decision. However, the Patent and Trademark Office have released new rules, and the new rules are much more clearer than the Allies Corporation. If an application goes before the Patent Office now, how would they examine? They apply 2 steps, but this is what they're going to examine for. Step 1. Step 1, they're going to check if it is an abstract idea, right? And it says that mental processes or concepts performed in human minds cannot be patented. A computerized method for anonymous online shopping cannot be patented, for it can be performed by humans without a computer. So what is a mental process would not get the patent protection. It's an abstract thing. If it can be performed by any human being, and merely because you put on a computer, you'll not be able to claim for patent protection for that. And see the step 2. Step 2 is important for me. Kindly compare step 2 that you find in the top one, that is Supreme Court decision. Look at this particular step 2. If you look at step 2 in Allies Corporation, it says there must be an inventive concept sufficient to transform the claimed abstract idea into a patent eligible application. The Patent Office directions is so simple. It says check if the abstract idea has been integrated into a practical application. Don't confuse so much. Integrated into practical application. If the answer is yes, then it is patentable. If no, then further analysis is undertaken to check if it is a routine, conventional activity or something more than routine, conventional activity on a computer. Then you're going to further examine that. So the initial thing is whether it's integrated into a practical application or not is to be looked into. Well, friends, that is the development that have happened in the United States Patent and Trademark Office and the case laws that have developed in the US jurisdiction. Well, let me just quickly refer to something related to this particular AI, not exactly the patent eligibility. AI leads us to a question of authorship and ownership of copyright. You know, who has given input? I'm sure this entire group of participants know that popular case of a monkey taking selfie. Whether the monkey which takes selfie or has been trained to take selfie, right, becomes the owner of that particular photograph of which it has taken the selfie. This particular case is a very interesting case. The courts here have looked at who can become the owner or author of a particular copyrightable work. And the law everywhere is clear that it must be a natural person. There must be an element of originality in that particular work. And there must be an individual who is going to do all the activities of the owner of a particular property in the form of transfer, alienation, then licensing, assignment. All this should be able to do that. From these perspectives, you find that an AI, an artificial intelligence or a machine, though it is generating copyrightable work, it cannot be at this particular stage considered to be an author or owner of a particular copyright. However, there is a lot of debate and discussion going on whether AI or a machine or a robot should be considered as a legal person. If it is considered to be as a legal person having its existence, like a corporation, like an idol, or like any other juristic person, then it should be capable of holding the right with respect to the creation that it makes. So until such time, it is not going to own the copyrightable work. This is as far as copyrightable work generated by the machine is concerned by use of the computer program. Then the question that comes up is, yes, you must have heard about that popular case of Daubus, right? In US, that Daubus case, both they filed an application in USPTO, US Patent and Trademark Office, European Patent Office, UK Patent Office, right? UK Patent Office they filed. And the application filed for patent was on beverage container and fraction light signals. They contended here that this particular invention for which we are claiming patent is autonomously created by the machine called as Daubus, right? Only building systems, neural networks was done by human being while devising the methodologies and generating ideas performed by Daubus. So this was the contention when they filed this particular application. However, USPTO, EPO, as well as UK IPO, they all rejected that particular claim and they said that we cannot recognize Daubus as an inventor, right? See, this is what happened on 22nd of April. The court said, the patent office said, inventors are to be natural persons, right? Since they are not natural persons, they cannot be recognized as inventor. Since they cannot be recognized as inventor, there is no question of they owning that particular patent. So natural persons only can file applications for this. Another question is, can AI system invent? The manual of patent and examination there refers to something called as conception and reduction into practice. So the whole question that comes up is AI system capable of conception? Right? Can it exhibit common sense unless it is built into it? Does it have unique identity to have right of inventorship? These are all the questions that have come up. And does it have the free will is also a thing that's going to be examined. So now the whole debate here is whether this particular machine is a tool or is it an entity. If it's a tool, then there is no question of that tool owning anything. The owner of the tool will own whatever outcome is there from the tool. On the contrary, if it is an entity as such, then the entity would be entitled for ownership and other rights associated with it. That is briefly about the AI and copyright as well as inventorship. Let me just quickly take you through European Patent Office, how European Patent Office has been looking at the computer-related inventions as a patent-eligible subject matter. I'll just focus on these particular slide, and then I'll skip the other case laws, then take you through AI-related thing. See here, where a claim is for a subject matter having technical character, it should have a technical character. In such cases, the claim will not be excluded. It gets patent protection. How do you assess technical character? Right? Prior art as well as the presence of a device in the claim supports the presence of technical character. So there must be a device and a prior art. So both, if you are looking at, then that supports interpretation of whether it's having a technical character or not. For example, any embedded system or any data processing operation implemented by a computer program through special circuits, they all become patent-eligible subject matter because they have the technical character in them. Then, friends, normal working of a computer will not make it a technical character. It's a routine working. Though it is technical in nature, you do not find a further technical effect that's coming from the program. It's a routine, normal working of the computer. Then, the programmer here must have had technical considerations beyond merely finding a computer algorithm to carry out some procedure. So it should be something beyond that. That's what we meant by further technical effect. Then, it may affect the efficiency or security of a process, the management of computer resources required, or the rate of data transfer in a communication link. So any one of these would happen here to qualify as a patent eligible subject matter. Then, friends, if they have further technical effect, as I pointed out, they're presumed to have a technical character. What is the further technical effect that you're talking of? It is something beyond mere working of a computer. And if it's something beyond mere working of a computer, then that would be called as further technical effect, when you would presume that it has the technical character. There are different tests that have developed, and I think I'm going to just move. Contribution approach is there. Technical effect approach is there. There are 2 cases on that. And then any hardware approach is also there, where they said whether the claim involves the use or is to a piece of physical hardware. If the answer is yes, then it is patent eligible and not excluded. Right? Hitachi case and pension benefit system partnership case, they both support this one. And let me just refer to 2 recent developments that have happened in European Patent Office. And this is in the context of healthcare technology. And you know, AI has entered into all fields of technology. And in all disciplines, it's being utilized very, very effectively. Even the robo operation is also a part of healthcare system. So this, in this particular the example that I'm giving here, it is relating to a heart monitoring apparatus. It's a heart monitoring apparatus. And what is that it does? Input, it's an input means for receiving an ECG from a patient. It receives and then transforms ECG information from a patient. And what does it do further? These are the things that you find. There are neural networks the neural networks in that machine would identify distinctive irregular heartbeats, right, which are spurious with regard to monitoring heartbeat conditions. So they're what are they monitoring? They're monitoring distinctive irregular heartbeats, right? And the next one is important. They determine if ECG pulses, not including the distinctive irregular heartbeats. So ECG pulses, they're separating it from the irregular heartbeats. ECG pulses, not including the distinctive irregular heartbeats, are within or outside of the regular heartbeat in dimensional volume. So this is very, very important because the neural network here is trying to exclude the distinctive irregular heartbeats and trying to identify the proper effects. What is the problem here? The problem was registers number of false positives in number of ECG pulses. That's the thing. Then what is the solution that you're providing here? Neural networks computes to identify irregular heart conditions, and the moment it finds irregular heart conditions, there is an alarm that's being raised. And you find the patent office said, yes, the problem and the solution to the problem here, there is technical. There's a technical character in that, and therefore technical solution to a technical problem is found out here, and hence the entire heart monitoring apparatus comprising these steps would be eligible for patent. You find the neural networks here is in the form of an AI that was recognized as patentable subject matter. One more example I'll give you right before I move on to the Indian position. It's in the form of an insulin pump, right? An insulin pump with a graphical user interface. There is GUI. That GUI is for displaying the menu items. And here, the choice and order of displayed menu items depends on user-specific preferences. So the user of that particular insulin pump that he has on his body will be able to regulate and then say, this is the profile that the menu that I would want to see here. So it depends on the user-specific preference profile at a current time, right? And what happens in that case? The profile is updated based on a statistical analysis of user inputs. So based on user inputs, the profile is updated at every time about the insulin. What exactly is the user wants to know, how exactly he wants to respond to the changes that are happening can be regulated by this particular insulin pump, right? This is the claim that has been made. Now, what does the pump has? The insulin pump has a self-learning device. It's a self-learning device and keeps getting inputs and calculates in them and then gives out the output. However, in this particular case, it is not just the self-learning device that facilitated the patenting. There is also what is called as improved interface for reduced screen size. So the interface for reduced screen size was there, and plus self-learning aspect was also there. However, the patent office said self-learning aspect alone would not have been sufficient for patentability. Here, the improved interface is also the key. So self-learning plus improved interface here together is considered to be technical in nature, solving a technical problem, and therefore this particular insulin pump with all those features would be eligible for patent. This is the backdrop of European Patent Office, friends. As far as India is concerned, Section 3K of the Patent Act expressly says that a computer program per se is not patent eligible, right? And these are all the three guidelines went, and I'm not going to go through all the three guidelines from Joint Parliamentary Committee. First guidelines, a test was applied. Second guidelines came out in 2016, where they insisted on what is called as conjunction with a novel hardware may be granted patent. And then, of course, after considerable debate, discussion, etc., a new guideline has been issued in 2017. And now this guideline focuses on underlying substance of the invention rather than on the form of claim. How you make a claim is not relevant here. What is that you have claimed here in the form of a process? If that is not for a computer program by itself, then it would be eligible for patent. And to a large extent, the technical contribution, right, approach followed by European Patent Office has been followed to a large extent, right? And therefore, you see, a claim in substance falling under excluded subject matter, right, to be not accepted even if claimed as method or process or apparatus, etc. Whatever may be the use of the terminology, there will not be patent granted if the claim is not falling within the patent eligible subject matter. Similarly, the constructional element that you're going to take is whether there's a technical contribution beyond mere computer program, and is there something beyond hardware program interface which usually happens in a computer program. Then you would say yes. After this particular guideline came, these are some of the patents which have been granted based on the new guideline, like method of providing information about users of a social network and system thereof, executing software performance test jobs in a clustered system, and online personal authentication. Yes. This is the present position as far as India is concerned. Well, I have tried to present before the audience the developments in the field of technology, and the development in the field of technology is also posing challenges to the patent system, and the patent system have been able to address these challenges. And at the same time, you find the more the advanced technology is, and the more patent system responds to that, there is more and more innovation that's happening. And therefore, patent system, definitely I would assert and say, patent system to a large extent has been contributing to the competition in the market, number one, and also to the innovations that are happening, because every innovation or innovator would feel that his innovation can be commercially exploited by him to the exclusion of others, and thereby he will be able to sustain in the competitive market. Well, with these few rambling thoughts, friends, let me just conclude. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and there is 10 minutes left. Maybe I will be happy to receive any questions from the participants. Let me thank the organizers for this particular opportunity. I'm sorry, there was an intervention in between that was beyond my control. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sir, on behalf of both institutions, let me extend a very sincere gratitude for your enlightened presentation with your scholarly ideas. Thank you very much, sir.